see who has the most playmakers, who has the guys that have the propensity to make the plays, and that's when you're going to find the winner.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's stay in the NFL. Before, and I know you're happy at Colorado, but before Shoddy went to the Cowboys, your name was kind of in the mix. Is there anything that would get you to jump to the National Football League?
Not whatsoever. What transpired with my son last year, ain't no way in the world. No, I don't have a. Thank you, Lord. When I stop like that.
That's to keep you from saying you don't need to say.
When I stop like that, that don't mean I'm lost for words. That means God said,
hold on. That's too wrong.
That means God said, you're a head coach now. You can't do that now. You can't talk like that. You can't say that. I know you're comfortable with your brothers here, but you can't say that.
Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more NFL news, and as you can hear from the audio clip, Deion Sanders really let the NFL have it, and he kept it 100 as he usually does. And that's what most of these owners and, people who make these team decisions hate about Deion Sanders and his family, is that they keep it honest and they keep it less PC than most people would want them to. So I like the energy that Deion gave with the NFL, because we know the NFL colluded in having his son almost not drafted, being drafted in the 5th round to Cleveland. So that essentially set him, to fail, essentially, to be behind like 4 quarterbacks. And then as fate would have it, Joe Flacco got traded. Dylan Gabriel got hurt. And then eventually Shador was able to start. But of course, they didn't have a lot of pieces around him on the offense, have a terrible offensive line, similar to what he had in Colorado. Now that I think about it, he's really never had an elite offensive line. Maybe that year in Colorado, it was the best that he's ever seen. But for the most part, he's never had that. And with all the talent that's out there, it's very difficult to put those pieces together, because otherwise everybody would be doing it. But, the NFL definitely colluded in getting him, that short end of the stick, because he could have easily been a 2nd-round quarterback. Some argue that he could have been a 1st-round quarterback. But when these billion-dollar owners collude, and they collude pretty often on everything from the smallest of things, you're not going to get what you want. And if you on the wrong side of these billionaire owners, you're definitely not going to get what you want. And then Deion being so close to Cowboys owner, I don't know how close he is now, but being close to Jerry Jones, playing for him as a football player and winning championships and things like that, you thought Jerry Jones would take a flyer on him, especially with Dak on the backside of his career, but he didn't do that. So it just shows you the collusion that, Jerry Jones thinks highly of Deion Sanders from multiple interviews and statements that he's made, but he still couldn't make a decision to pick Shador Sanders because these billionaire owners own each other. And it's no different, and Deion knows this more than anybody. As a former Hall of Famer football player that played in NFL for multiple years and who was seen as one of the greatest defensive players of all time, he knows the politics behind the scenes. And that's why he made that statement of saying he would never coach in the NFL because of the way they did his son. Because there's a lot of things that you can do to a man, but playing with their children is something that you don't do. And Deion knows that more than anybody. He is a huge family man. Everything he does is for his family. He's very family oriented, even from his mother all the way to all of his children that he has. And the NFL knew better than that, and they still did that because they wanted to so-called humble him. Because if I hear anybody's commentary from regular people who really don't even watch football, every time when people bring up Shador Sanders, they was like, well, he should have been humble. He should have did this. But have you ever seen Baker Mayfield play or his off-the-field transgressions? What about Johnny Manziel? They had a whole documentary about him and the drugs and the things that he was doing behind the scenes and the alcohol and things like that. And these guys both were drafted in the 1st round. Baker Mayfield was a first overall pick. I believe Johnny Manziel went 25, of course, to the Browns. Both actually miraculously went to the Browns, which is kind of odd now that I think about it. But nevertheless, these players had huge off-the-field transgressions, and they were still drafted in the 1st round by the same team that drafted Shador Sanders in the 5th round. So it makes you wonder what is the difference between Shador Sanders and Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel. I guess that's an easy one to figure out, right? Um, but that's why I just don't buy the story of Shador wasn't humble, and that's the reason why he didn't get drafted in the earlier rounds. And he didn't have any off the field issues that were reported. He didn't have any on the field issues except for scoring touchdowns and just being most productive as he could be with the team that he had. So it just doesn't add up, but it does add up if you know the politics of the NFL and these billion dollar owners. So Dion is basically saying it's up forever with the NFL because they know what they did to him, and he knows more than we do behind the scenes of what happened and who said what and who told who not to draft who and all those different things that they did. Because we know they colluded with Colin Kaepernick and they did a settlement, and they kept that pretty quiet on the wraps because we know that was an obvious one because he was still um, somewhat in his prime when they colluded against him. But we know that was about the owners standing together in favor of the politics and the advertisers and things like that. So I'm sure Deion Sanders has that privileged information that we don't have, that we know is out there. So that's one of those things where, you really can't say anything because these billion-dollar owners own everything. They own the media and they can control the media the way they want. So it's a dirty game that's very predatory for young black men. One of the sports I don't recommend young black men playing or any black man, period. Um, I think the MLB is a lot better and the NBA is a lot, steps ahead. It still feel like the NFL is in the civil rights era where they're still fighting for things that we fought for in like 1964 just because of these owners. And the word owner is kind of misleading as well. It has a negative connotation to it as well. They need to find another name, maybe CEO or something like that. But that name just seems um, rather odd. But, you know, I agree 100% with Deion Sanders. I wouldn't do anything for the NFL, bring them any money because of what they did to my son. It's up forever with the NFL, according to Deion. It's one of the most horribly ran leagues in the NFL. Then out of all the major franchises, definitely the most horribly ran. So until next time, I'll see you next time.